Welcome back to Slack Signal X. We weren't supposed to be looking for anything. Not in the 90s. Not in America. Not after the Cold War wrapped up and the malls opened up 7 days a week. We had everything. Cable, microwave burritos, world with no draft, no depression, no Great War. But still, there was this quiet ache, a weird kind of hum behind everything. Call it God, call it spirit, call it meaning. We just knew something was missing. And so began the clumsiest spiritual search in modern history. We weren't religious. We were restless. Raised on sarcasm, baptized in cynicism, and still aching for something true. This is a story of a generation trying to find the sacred in a world that had forgotten how to speak in that language. But before we begin, please like, subscribe. Don't be a poser. 1. An echo. Most of us didn't grow up in the fire of belief. We grew up in its afterglow. Sunday school felt like theater. Sit still, color the donkey, get a sticker. Say the magic words and you're saved. But there was no weight behind it. The rituals were there, but the presence was gone. The Jesus we met felt like a cartoon. White, shiny, smiling too wide. Meanwhile, the world was starting to burn at the edges. AIDS, divorce, Iraq, Rodney King. We wanted something real, something raw, not pastel Jesus in a climate-controlled sanctuary. So we stopped going, but we never stopped wondering. 2. Distance. The 90s were a strange kind of spiritual drought. Not a war on faith, just a slow erosion. Institutions failed us, church scandals, televangelist meltdowns, greed in suits pretending to be shepherds. It didn't make us atheists, it made us suspicious. We didn't renounce God, we just stopped looking for him where we were told he lived. 3. Accidental pilgrims. We didn't pack bags and go to monasteries. We went to dorm rooms, record stores, basements. We burned incense without knowing why. Read Terence McKenna and C.S. Lewis in the same sitting. Quoted Corinthians and the Tao Te Ching in the margins of our notebooks. Somewhere between Jesus and Buddha, we were trying to stitch together a belief system formed from fragments. We didn't know the rules. We didn't trust the preachers, but we felt the hunger. That part was real. 4. The Jesus some of us almost believed in. There was always a ghost of Jesus behind the static. Not TV Jesus, not megachurch CEO Jesus. The real one. The one who flipped tables, walked barefoot, broke bread with drunks and losers. Some clung to that Jesus, others ran for him, but most of us were haunted by him. We didn't want easy answers, we wanted the mystery. The blood and dirt and the actual cross, not the rhinestone version sold in the gift shop. But nobody was preaching that Jesus in the suburbs, so we went looking for him in our own way, usually in places the church wouldn't dare to go. 5. Krishna in the pit. And then came the Hare Krishna kids. In the hardcore scene of all places. Shaved heads, tilaka marks, devotion like a fist on your chest, bands like Shelter and 108 screaming Sanskrit over breakdowns and snare hits. They weren't preaching from a stage, they were living it. Discipline, bhakti, devotion to something higher in a culture addicted to bottomless lows. In a scene defined by rage, the Krishnas brought something rare. Clarity. And it didn't feel like a gimmick. It felt like a lifeline. Some of us mocked it, others joined, but all of us noticed. Because here were people who weren't just rebelling, they were offering an alternative. 6. Parking lot prophets. If you hit Lollapalooza or any major festival between 93 and 97, you probably met them too. The robe-clad kids with the Bhagavad Gita in one hand and a disarming smile in the other. They'd hand you the book like it was a mixtape. Sometimes you took it, sometimes you threw it under the seat, but once in a while you opened it, and something inside it cracked the shell. Not guilt, not fear, just presence, just the idea that there might be something ancient and alive in all this chaos. 7. DIY spirituality. We didn't join temples. We built altars in bedrooms, stacks of books, candles, symbols we half understood but felt anyway. A cross here, a lotus there. Postcards of saints next to flyers for punk shows. It was messy, contradictory, clumsy, but it was ours. We weren't pretending to be holy. We were trying to remember what that even meant. 8. Mysticism and mixtapes. If prayer was a language, then music was how we spoke to the void. We made mixtapes like rosaries, liner notes written like psalms, songs that felt like sermons for the unsaved. The church never gave us salvation, but maybe the bridge in a Tori Amos song did, or the last lines of a Pixies track, or the deep breath between verses on a Cure album. Music didn't ask us to believe. It showed us the ache we were already carrying. 9. Eastern Whispers. While Western churches were asking for donations, Eastern texts were offering stillness. Buddhism, Taoism, Vedanta, translated and watered down, sure, but still powerful enough to crack open our minds. We read Siddhartha like it was a diary, tried meditating between bong hits, learned about ego death in between Operation Ivy and Sonic Youth bootlegs. We weren't devout, we were curious. And curiosity is a spiritual act. 10. Drugs. And yeah, a lot of us found God by accident, in parking lots, in dorms, on mushrooms in the woods while the trees breathed and the stars pulsed with meaning. Not every trip was holy, but some of them definitely were. Not because the chemicals made us see God, but because they helped us shut up long enough to hear something besides our own noise. 11. Church of the Uncool. If God existed, he didn't live in the suburbs. He was in the warehouse show where a kid collapsed from dancing too hard. He was in the poem written in a spiral on a dinner napkin. He was in the silence of a friend sitting next to you while your life quietly fell apart. We didn't trust institutions, but we trusted moments, and usually that was enough. 12. The longing. We weren't spiritual experts. We were amateurs with open wounds and cassette players, but we were honest about the ache. And sometimes that's closer to the divine than any preacher can get. The 90s weren't godless. They were just honest about the confusion. We didn't find truth. We just found the courage to ask the question and sit with it and live with it and scream it into microphones. We weren't saved. We were searching. And most of us still are. The sacred doesn't always show up where you expect it. Sometimes it's in a punk show. Sometimes it's in a parable. Sometimes it's in the silence between both. We were clumsy seekers. We still are. But if the divine is real, it probably doesn't mind clumsy. It probably prefers it. Because at least it's honest and has earnest intention. Thank you. This has been Slack Signal X.